All right, so I realize that when I do my videos, I'm taking up an entire half of a table where you guys have such a small space to work in. So it's not quite identical to your working conditions, but it's the advantage of being the teacher and having the room to myself. So that's something to consider. Now, I've got my 2 slabs here rolled out. They're nice and big. Okay, again, I can spread out. Just make sure that when you roll out a slab, whatever it is that you're making, make sure that it's big enough so that it's going to take up plenty of space, or it's going to be big enough to create whatever it is that you're making, okay? So I've got my triangle, ruler, needle tool. I've also got popsicle stick and a tongue depressor, depending on which ones I'm gonna be using. Blue rib, especially when we're using slabs, because we gotta get rid of that canvas texture. A couple of modeling tools, all right? A cup of water and a sponge, paintbrush, and a comb. All right, I get these tools pretty much every single time I'm gonna start a project, so it's really important that you make sure you have everything with you. Like I said, I really don't need to go get anything else, unless I think of something else that I might want later on. I don't know, all right? So that's something to just kind of keep in the back of your mind as you're building this. So I'm gonna make something a little bit different, I think. Instead of going with the typical box shape, I think I'm gonna go for more of a triangular jar shape. So I'm gonna start out by cutting out my triangle, whichever size it is that I want. Now I can go with something a little bit more dramatic, okay? I'm gonna have to back that up. I didn't realize I was out of frame there. There we go, okay? So I might do something a little bit more like that shape, okay? Obviously I could go something that's more of an isosceles equilateral triangle, the one where all the angles are the same. You know, that's kind of going to be what I have to decide here as the artist. You are the creator, you are the artist, you are the master of your design. So make sure that whatever it is that you're making, okay, you know exactly what you're going to be doing. I like to always start out with making sure that I have straight edges, okay? So therefore I've cut my 90-degree angle here. Okay, and now what I can do is I can go ahead and cut out shapes that I want. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this out. I got some cracking going on in the slab, so I'm gonna cut those cracks away. So that means that I have this big of a slab to work with. Now this is almost, 9 inches long, so I can make something pretty wide. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna make and if you can't read your ruler, that's always a problem. But here we go. I'm gonna go ahead and make this a rectangle, or a triangle, excuse me, that is 6 inches wide, which means that over here, I'm gonna put a mark at 3 inches, okay? So that means that I could, and I'm not cutting all the way through, but I'm just kind of, hopefully you guys will be able to see this line here. Okay, but it's always a good idea if you're not really positive about what you're going to be making, okay? And what I did is I just drew in the shape of the triangle there that I'm thinking of possibly making. I want to do something a little dramatic like that, but I think that might be, unfortunately, a little bit too sharp. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of space here that I'm not really going to be able to get to. This is a jar. I want to be able to reach my hand into it, and if it's too small, then that's not going to work, okay? So if I go, let's say, to 6 inches, which is about right there, and I go 3 inches in, that gives me a point where I can use that. And this is going to give me a slightly wider field to my triangle. And I think that's going to work, because that's 6 by 6, and I think I'm going to go with that. All right. So now it's a matter of, and I could use my ruler, I could use my straight edge or my triangle, just kind of depends on what you like to use personally. So there, and there. Okay, so that's gonna be the bottom of my project, okay? Before I go any further, add a little water, smooth that out. Okay. Yes, I waited to smooth that out, and you can even use your hands if you want to. You don't have to use their rib. Okay. Make sure we get both sides, because canvas texture is on both sides. And again, this takes just a few brief seconds, and it starts out and looks so much better rather than having that canvas texture that makes it look like we're too lazy to do that. All right, so I've got my base. This is the bottom of my project, right? So what I need to do now is measure how long do my slabs have to be here. And this is 6 3/4. This one's gonna be 6 and 6 3/4, or almost 7. Yeah, you know what, let's go ahead and make them 7 each. Okay, now again, what I'm doing here is I'm making a box that has a triangle foot instead of a square. So that means that I'm going to create a rectangle on each of these sides to make it so that it comes up in a triangular shape. I hope that makes sense. I'm not making a pyramid, all right? So I don't have to worry about the angles and all that kind of stuff. So that's going to help me out a little bit in the end. So I'm going to go ahead and got a little too much water on there. We'll smooth out this slab before we cut it, which I should have done to the first one, but I didn't, but that's okay. And get rid of that. Flip this over. And you really don't need much water at all. There really isn't, you know, water isn't necessary. Okay. So now I'm going to be creating rectangles. So that means that I need to come back and make sure that I have a nice straight edge to measure from. So I do the same thing. Repeat that there. Okay. And then I need it to be at least 6 inches tall. That's the height requirement for the project. That's the height requirement without your without the handle. All right. So instead of making it exactly 6 inches, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to go 6.5, or maybe even 7. All right. It doesn't say that you can't go bigger. It just says that you can't. It has to be at least 6 inches tall. So I'm going to measure 7, 7, and I don't think I'm going to be able to get much more than one rectangle out of this. Okay. So I'm going to go here and here. We'll go ahead and cut that bigger than it needs to be because I'm gonna go that. So that's the height, all right? So then we're gonna make this one, and that happens to be 7 inches also, so that works out nice. So I measure 7 from that edge and 7 from this edge, and then that way I can cut out my rectangle here. Technically, I guess that is a square. All right. So remember, when we're making slabs, we have to let those dry out and let those get a little bit leather hard. So I'm gonna grab some newspaper. Yeah, I know, I forgot to grab newspaper. Sandwich it between them, and then I'll do a time lapse of me cutting out the other squares or the rectangles. Not really, you guys need to see that, but I'll see you in the next one.